Hello and welcome to the Tennis Podcast live from Wimbledon on day 6 of the Championships. I'm Catherine Whitaker, this is Matt Roberts, this is David Law, this is trusty Jude the Bear that simply cannot let us down. And this is our truly incredible crowd. It is a true Saturday night raucous crowd. I cannot believe the noise they're making. Bin assisted. Thank you guys. That was incredibly special and fitting for what's been an absolute, in the words of cameraman Matthew, bonanza of a day at Wimbledon. Quite often I start the show by saying I don't know where to start. I genuinely don't know where to start tonight, and I do need a bit of help because we've just been on lock-ins on centre court and court number 1 with Holger, Rune and Novak Djokovic, who are going to meet in the next round. And I kind of just want to buzz and talk about those experiences, but also it feels like we probably need to start by rowing way back in the day to the defeat of the world number 1, Iga Swiatek, and maybe even the news that dropped about Emma Raducanu and Andy Murray's doubles partnership being over before a team name could even be decided upon. No matter where we start, folks, we'll be covering all of that, and it is truly a bonanza of a day, isn't it?
Yeah, it sure is. Quite incredible day, really, because I think the rain as well makes you a bit unsettled. You don't know where you are. Matches are moving around. You don't know what's going to finish. Suddenly, I realised matches that I didn't even know had started were one game from the end in the 5th set. Like players I care about, like Artifice. You know, he's not even going to get another mention probably. But so much has happened, and then suddenly I realised that matches that were decided today are now going to be happening tomorrow with the next round. You know, because things have been disrupted. But yeah, I mean, it feels like Iga Swiatek is the story of the day, but goodness, a lot's happened.
Yeah, I think that's right, because sometimes you get days at slams where a lot happens, but like there maybe aren't some huge stories in there as well. But this was a lot happening going right until, you know, tennis only finished moments ago. But we also lost the world number 1, and we lost last year's finalist, and Novak Djokovic was a set down at one point. You know, there were things happening everywhere, and obviously the big sort of bombshell news of Emma Raducanu's withdrawal took up a lot of bandwidth during the day as well. So like it was matches everywhere, but you didn't really have time to breathe because there were stories everywhere as well, and of course the football.
Yeah, there was a penalty shootout happening during kind of the most critical moments of the day. It's one of those, did that really all happen on the same day moments? I've put my strawberry jumper on, especially. It felt like a strawberry jumper day.
Good decision.
You know,
Jude had it all under control.
Under control.
So not worried about Jude's penalty.
Get yourself a Jude, folks, from the Wimbledon shop. He never lets us down. Matt was clutching him so hard at about 7:30 p.m. today.
Right about the time that Iga Swiatek was in press.
Exactly the time that Iga Swiatek came to press. Yeah, should we talk about Iga Swiatek?
She didn't do a Carlos Alcaraz. She wasn't watching England's penalties in the shower.
No, I was sort of hoping she would, but alas, no. She lost today, if that isn't obvious. If you didn't already know, 3-6, 6-1, 6-2. To Yulia Putintseva, who's come in here. She was the form player coming in. She had won the title. She was the one with bags of confidence under her belt, and that's exactly what it looked like today. For anyone that wasn't watching this match, it's really hard to overstate how bad Iga Swiatek was during sets 2 and 3. She was extremely poor. That's not an exaggeration, is it? And it feels like she was particularly poor given how not poor she was in the opening set. Like it wasn't French Open Iga Swiatek in the first set, but she looked comfortable and secure and safe, and I just did not foresee what ended up happening in that match.
No, as soon as she got broken in the second set, it was like the wheels came off and panic set in, and she lost all sense of control. Oh my goodness. We'll be closing in around 15 minutes.
Today.
We've got enough going on.
Your way to the exit gates, and make sure you take all your belongings with you. Hope you enjoyed your day here at Wimbledon.
Choked.
And wish you a pleasant and safe journey home. Thank you. As I was saying, Iga Swiatek, once she got broken by Yulia Putintseva at the start of that second set, she never recovered at all. Like, it was then unforced errors, a lot of them, hitting out, hitting big, sort of. She just lost all sense of her game and her plan. I do want to give Yulia Putintseva her due, because she played a fantastically smart match. She made an adjustment to step further back on the return, give herself a bit more time, and that really worked. And she was also having a great mix of really rushing Swiatek in a way that we've seen players do before, but also disrupting with variety. There was a lot of drop shots, a lot of sort of short slice shots, and it was all just as a package really, really good. And I felt like she gave a great answer in her press conference, kind of a nod to what you're saying about how she was the form player. She was asked, have you ever played better on grass? And she said, well, that match I played against Cocchiaretto in Birmingham just a couple of weeks ago was a really good one. And it was like, yeah, if you were watching that run, you knew that she was a potential dangerous opponent for Swiatek. But still, I was surprised by the lopsided nature. 9 games in a row in the middle of this match for Putintseva. And honestly, I thought that was a performance that Swiatek had kind of moved on from. I thought that was a 2-year ago Iga Swiatek performance on grass. Very similar in a way to the Cornet loss. Same court, same kind of drama queen for the people opponent. You know, there were some similarities, and same just error fest really from the racket of Iga Swiatek, and I wasn't expecting that. I thought that, you know, we've seen her in so many perilous positions this year. You know, even when she was down in this set, I was thinking, well, we've seen Iga Swiatek just win titles from match point down. Like, we know that she's got that fight in her, and we know that she can come back from difficult positions, but never felt like that was going to be the case today. Once, as I said, once it got away from her, it just sort of kept running down the hill, and she couldn't get it back. And I was pretty shocked, actually.
Yeah, it was the performance of somebody with absolutely no confidence, with very frail confidence, which for somebody who was on a 20-match winning streak and has just won a Grand Slam was pretty extraordinary. And there were some very revealing lines well, actually, the whole press conference was really interesting from Iga Swiatek, and I would like to shout out the journalists that attended it whilst England were in a penalty shootout, because full disclosure, I was not one of them. Charlie Eccleshare of The Athletic, I'm looking at you. He was a football reporter until about a month ago, and there he was in the Iga Swiatek press conference as Jude Bellingham was stepping up to take a penalty.
God, Charlie.
Tip of the hat to you, my friend. And he got, as well as everybody else in there, some really revealing quotes out of Iga Swiatek. She said she wouldn't be analysing the match very much because it's the last tournament on grass for a year, and it doesn't have any bearing for her on what's coming up until the grass court season next year. It was a real revelation of how much she compartmentalises grass and just sees it totally separate to the rest of tennis in her life. And I felt like sort of stretching that onto the court, she also wasn't able to carry any of her confidence from the rest of her tennis onto a grass court. She looked like she'd been dropped from space today and had never won a Grand Slam, never been world number one. And that compartmentalising, it feels very 90s to me. It's giving Casper Ruud. Yep. And I get that it's a journey for her on grass, and she wasn't necessarily going to be winning it this year. You know, it's going to be a journey for her to get there. But I just wish she was driving the train more on that journey. You know, she said she made a mistake with her preparation this year for the grass court season.
Should have gone to that second Taylor Swift concert.
Right. She said she made a mistake with the preparation, and I was expecting her to say, I can't just rock up at Wimbledon and expect to play well. I need to be playing a warm-up event. She said, no, I did too much off-court stuff, and then was a bit vague about what that was, and said, I think I'll go on holiday next year instead. It's not giving Wimbledon is peak tennis and one of my top priorities.
I think mainly it's giving that the French Open is the priority, and she doesn't really think she's got the bandwidth to then follow it with Wimbledon in any other way than what she is. And actually, she needs more time off. She needs to come in here refreshed. That's effectively what she's saying there. She said, I did play an event last year. And actually, if you think back, she played better last year than she has this year or 2 years ago. I mean, this performance today, I've seen that movie before. 2 years ago was virtually identical. It was the same day, third round, Saturday. It was before that Kyrgios-Tsitsipas circus. It was coming off the back of 37 match winning streak or something like that. That was the one that ended it. It was against Elise Cornet, a feisty, difficult player who's not going to give you anything and who's going to revel in making life tricky for you. And just like that day, she just kept on overhitting, one after another, the forehand malfunctioning and going out. And while I'm watching it, I'm thinking, well, where is your tactical change up here? Where is your adjustment? And that was exactly how I felt 2 years ago. And unlike 2 years ago, I actually thought specifically, where's your drop shot? You're hitting 3-4 great ground strokes against a player who's just decided, I don't care. I'm just absorbing all of them and I'm going to send them hard and deep back, and then you'll have to do it all over again and have to go for more and eventually miss. And if she'd had a drop shot like some of the other players had, Putintseva would be nowhere near them. I didn't see one drop shot. So she looked frazzled mentally. I thought her play was terrible, really, for two sets. And Putintseva was fantastic. You know, it's two things happening at the same time, and it's made me decide. I think if I went back, I've predicted Iga Swiatek to win the title here this year and the previous two. I will not be doing that again next year. I don't care what she could win all the other 3 Grand Slams before then. I will not be predicting that she's going to win Wimbledon until she actually proves she can play on this stuff.
David's taking it personally.
He does make the same mistake twice, folks, but not 3 times. That's
no, I've made it 3 times. Now I'm not going to make it 4 times. But I mean, I think what she does. You know, so many players say that grass is no longer a specialist surface because they're all the same speed. She makes it look like a completely foreign surface.
Look, there's a lot of people in the chat here, and hello to everybody that is with us live, saying she's young, she's got time. Absolutely, I agree. It's just she's not saying that. She's not saying I'm desperate to figure this out. Just give me a bit of time. You know, she was asked, how determined are you to figure this out and succeed here one day? And within the answer, she said, I'm determined at every tournament. Now, she is, and that's great, and that's why she's world number 1. But this is Wimbledon, you know? I just don't, and maybe this is British bias or romanticism from me, but I'm not sure she sees it that differently.
I don't think she can, because of Roland Garros and the position of it in the calendar. I genuinely think the way she is wired. She actually said, one quote in the press conference was, if Wimbledon was in 2 months' time, I'd be really motivated.
So do you think never then? Because the calendar ain't changing.
Well, I think if she's going for career slam, then that would change the equation. I think if she gets an Australian Open...
Wimbledon, come back to me when I've got an Australian Open.
Maybe. And look, I think the Olympics is another complicating factor this year. You know, and that's going to be a big goal. It's at Roland Garros. She's the big favourite there. I think what's interesting is that 2022, I don't think she played a warm-up event between Roland Garros and Wimbledon, and she hasn't done it here either. Those are the 2 years with her streak. So in a way, I think it's kind of less in a way about what she does at Roland Garros, and more kind of in the build-up to Roland Garros. If she's constantly going deep in all those tournaments, playing them all, winning them all, I think she just finds herself, she needs a break after Roland Garros. Like, she's not going to do anything at Wimbledon, even if she then did play a grass court event in between, because she needs a break. But I think if generally her season has looked a bit different, like it did last year in 2023, she wasn't great between the Australian Open and Roland Garros. I don't think she was as kind of exhausted. So she did slip in that extra grass court event. And came here a little bit fresher. I know she just won Roland Garros, but she hadn't had this constant build-up throughout the entire season of constantly going deep at all these events. So I think the overall context of her season is sort of playing into her Wimbledon performances. But I also think there's a part of this where we are, as you said, this is a throwback. Like 20, 30 years ago, I don't think we would have felt quite so strongly about this. We are seeing things now through a different lens, a Serena lens, a big four lens. Like, I think it's okay if Swiatek needs some time to crack this. And I know that you'll say, like, she's not really even trying to crack this at the moment, but I think that might come in time. I really do.
I'm the one here that didn't predict her to go deep in this tournament. It's more about what she's saying and the nature of the loss. Like, makes me wonder if she ever will. I agree with you that I think the Australian Open, once she gets that, it will change things. I also totally agree with your point before that, and sense an opportunity to make a point about 2-week-long 1,000 events, which I think are really contributing to the frazzling of these players. I really, really believe that's the case, and Swiatek is one of those that has pretty explicitly said that, hasn't she?
Yeah, but I think the point David makes is interesting. Like, it'd be cool if she saw it as an opportunity to improve her game generally, because there are areas where you still think she could get so much better, and that would surely still help her on clay and on hard. Like, she doesn't really need help on clay. She's so clearly the best, and she's dominating with what she's got, and I think will continue to. But actually, if you look at her hard court record, okay, it's amazing on tour, but it's not actually been all that amazing at the slams. Okay, I know she won the US Open, but what was it, 4th round at last year's US Open, and then a couple of early-ish exits at the Australian Open in the last couple of years. Like, you feel like developing just her game generally, broadening it out to help her on grass, will also potentially help her on other surfaces. And if she could sort of see it through that lens, then maybe she would commit more to it. But I can't see things changing, certainly until she's maybe got an Australian Open, as I say, or just priorities change. And it just feels like this is going to be her for a little while.
Just finally on Swiatek, because there is so much to cover, that line she gave Charlie, and he did push her on this to try and get her to elaborate and give some more detail. The line about, she said, my tank of really pushing myself to the limit suddenly felt empty. She said, I know what I did wrong after Roland Garros. I didn't rest properly. I won't make that mistake again. And then when he pressed her, she said that it was off-court stuff that drained her after Roland Garros. And I do think that off-court stuff, sponsor stuff, endorsements, commercial stuff, drains Iga Swiatek more than it would drain a lot of other top players, and that's going to be an interesting thing for her, because it's a clear move for her to become more commercial. I see her on a lot more things. When you land at Heathrow, there's a big picture of her on an Infosys billboard, isn't there? She's got the Lancôme sponsorship, and I think it's brilliant. Good luck to her. But it was interesting, when the line she gave about being asked who her dream dinner party guest would be, and she said Maria Sharapova, because she'd like to quiz her on sort of how she's excelled at and juggled the commercial side of things. Like, I do think that's going to be a big battle for Iga Swiatek.
Yeah, and if that is what she's referring to with those lines, because initially when I was reading the transcript, I wondered whether it might be like, had she gone in the gym or something and done some physical stuff, but I got the same gist in the end as you did there, and her agent is Max Eisenberg, who is the long time and still is the agent for Maria Sharapova and Emma Raducanu, and I've heard him interviewed in the past talking about like defending her endorsements and saying, listen, we have a set number of days that we need to fulfill for those sponsors, but we really plan those so that they don't get in the way. That's the whole thing, and I'm sure that, and listen, they all need their time if they're going to have an arrangement with her, but picking and choosing when that is maybe something she'll be able to just adjust a little.
Will Iga Swiatek win Wimbledon one day? One word.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I don't feel as confident today as
But you won't be
You've made that clear.
You won't be
David.
picking it when she does. It'll be a surprise to you.
I won't.
When it happens.
I won't. I mean, not unless. I mean, like, for instance, next year she might get to the final or get to the semis and feel like she's made a massive sort of move upwards. At the moment, that just felt like going back in time 2 years ago.
It still feels to me like it's up to her whether she wins. Like I don't think she's incapable. I would say. Like I think it will rest on her if she decides that she does want to prioritize it and commit to it. I think she's clearly a good enough talent and enough of a world-class player that she can play on grass. But that's no guarantee, I suppose. But yeah, for now, I would still say yes.
Yeah, I think so too. But it definitely doesn't feel like a given.
Oh no, no.
Do you know who I think is probably quite annoyed about the result today?
Elena Ostapenko.
Elena Ostapenko.
I think
she's seething that Yulia Putintseva got to be the one.
Yep.
She was like, I had that reservation.
Yep.
You've gazumped me.
Yeah, and she's got a much better head-to-head against Swiatek than she has against Putintseva as well.
Which I went back and watched the Putintseva-Ostapenko 2016 handshake yesterday. Just do it. Just do it, all of you. It's just the best.
Ostapenko is dismissing people. Totally dismissing. It might be the most impressive tennis I've seen this tournament, Ostapenko. But I do wonder if, the fact that it's not what she was planning on it being, this fourth round match, I do wonder if that could derail her.
Yeah, it might just burst the bubble.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting one. But Ostapenko, Putintseva, I mean, I know it's not one for the casuals, is it? But if you know, you really do know, and you will make a point of being present to watch it. For sure. Let's stay with the women's draw, shall we? Elena Rybakina suddenly maybe becomes the favourite for the title if she wasn't before. For a lot of people, she perhaps would have been before. But after beating Caroline Wozniacki David 6-love, 6-1, I think she certainly elevates to that position in a lot of people's minds.
Yeah, I commentated on this with Tracy Austin, and I was blown away. She was breathtaking today. She was... I realise this is a small sample size, but she was as good today on grass as Iga Swiatek is on clay. It was that good. You could not engineer a tennis player more perfectly equipped to play on grass than Elena Rybakina when she's in that sort of form. Now, she was against a player that kind of felt like a hitting partner in the way the rallies were going. I mean, this just felt like a generation difference. And let's be honest, when Caroline Wozniacki was winning her Grand Slam title in 2018, Elena Rybakina was just starting out, not even. And so they'd never played, they'd never even shared locker rooms, I don't think, really. And you have to go back to 2010 for when Wozniacki first became world number one, 14 years ago. And she's done a perfectly respectable job in her comeback. It's not been maybe what she hoped it would be, but it's been fine. But oh my word, today she couldn't do anything. She was just feeding balls effectively that Rybakina was just dismissing, and every shot was coming off. She was in the zone. She was middling everything. I think she hit something like 34 winners to 4. And the first set was 21 minutes.
Is this going to retire Caroline Wozniacki?
I genuinely got to the end of the match, and there was a moment where she was 6-love, 1-love down, then she got a game, and she smiled, and she's like, she's not that player. She's a scrapper. She's not that player who makes a song and dance about getting on the board. And her husband was in the crowd, and he led the standing ovation to try to kind of, raise her spirits and so forth. But Tracy Austin in the commentary box was saying, a year ago, Caroline was sitting next to me in this commentary box, and desperately wanted to sort of try again. And she pushed Coco Gauff, the eventual champion at the US Open, to 3 sets. She's done really well. But that's the sort of match that would make me, if I were her, think, okay, what am I doing this for?
Wow.
If Rybakina plays like that every round, she wins Wimbledon. It's just as simple as that.
It's Kalinskaya next, who's having an awesome season,
yeah.
Kalinskaya, but it's so hard to see her having the weaponry to challenge
Rybakina would have to be off.
Yeah.
Which we do
Which is
have to
absolutely
know.
possible,
Yeah.
for sure.
That can happen.
The risk of that has not evaporated.
No.
Absolutely. But she looked healthy.
Looked fine. I mean,
That's
she
really good to hear.
You know, she looked calm, and she just looked like she gave a good interview on court afterwards, and I just thought, here's somebody who's just feeling it. And look, the previous round she was pushed to 3 sets, so it's worth remembering, like you say, that one zoning performance doesn't mean a tournament of them.
Well, those are the 2 women's matches on court 1 today. Over on centre court, it was last year's semi-finalist Elena Svitolina against the 2-time finalists from the last 2 years, Ons Jabeur. 6-1, 7-6 for Svitolina today. Just too solid for Jabeur, who I do think is struggling with that knee. Sounds like the knee situation is just chronic now, and she's managing it. She was talking about injections after the match today. Look, she said she wasn't saying that's why she lost, and I think the movement was fine today. I just think she's generally kind of 90% of the player she used to be, and opponents are so good. So good. It is so tough to win slams and reach finals. I do worry for Ons Jabeur that she's not going to be Jana Novotná. That the best chances have passed her by, and it was interesting that this was her first time back on centre court since the trauma of the final last year, and she was asked about that in the press conference afterwards, and she said, yeah, it was tough, and it was in my mind.
Yeah, she said, I'm not going to lie to you.
Yeah.
And I think we saw that in the first set. I mean, just a horrible first set she played. You know, there was a lot of shanks. She wasn't timing the ball. Really, really struggled. Faced break points right at the start of the second set and held impressively. Got massive reaction from her box, and I think that settled her. And the second set struck me that it was, you know, really close and hard fought and could have gone either way. But Svitolina, who I'm impressed with as well, because she, you know, the way she was talking in Paris, she was really talking about how much preparation it takes now for her to just get on court every time, and she's had some physical issues herself and felt like she was hanging on a little bit. So I wasn't really expecting all that much of Svitolina kind of backing up last year's run, but she kind of put out a statement win in the last round against future Wimbledon champion Jule Niemeyer, and has now backed it up, and she's just relentless, Svitolina. She can just sort of pick on little weaknesses, and really impressive from her, but tough for Jabeur. I think she needed an easier opponent in her first match back on centre court. I mean, kind of maybe not, because then she would have been such a heavy favourite, but I think just level-wise, she needed time to recover, kind of from a bad first set, and Svitolina didn't allow that. And it's tough, because I think her level through 2 rounds have been good, and her level coming in have been pretty good. I wasn't that high on Ons Jabeur like throughout this season. I really thought she still wasn't in a great place, and the injury with the knee as well. But I was starting to just gain a bit of confidence again. But yeah, really, really tough scenes, to be honest.
Yeah, it was striking to me how not devastated she was afterwards. Like, obviously she was sad and disappointed, but I tuned into that press conference again. The England game was on, and there was a bloody lot happening at the time. Multi-screening is the best thing sometimes, David. It is not dereliction of podcast duty. And I tuned in. I think I turned to Matt and I said, oh my God, how traumatic is this going to be? You know, remembering the last 2 years and all of that. And she was sort of fine. And I think that's indicative of how much lower her expectations were of herself at this Wimbledon. I don't think she was shocked to lose that match or be losing in the third round. So Svitolina through to the fourth round, where she'll meet Wang Jinyu, who beat Harriet Darts, came back from a set and I think a breakdown on court 2, one of the many very rain-delayed matches from the outside courts today. David is potentially in a sprinkler situation here. So yeah, that could be fun, folks.
We need a new wet weather position,
yeah.
but not for rain.
So Svitolina Wang Jinyu for a place in the quarterfinals. Barbora Krejcikova is sneakily snaking her way through this draw. She got a retirement today from Buthas Monero, of course, who beat Marketa Vondrousova in the opening round. And she plays Danielle Collins next, Krejcikova.
It's Collins' best ever Wimbledon, isn't it, already, by reaching the second week here. And look, all of these people are in a section of the draw where Iga Swiatek's just gone and Ons Jabeur has just gone. And, on kind of today's evidence, I think Collins probably may well have beaten Iga Swiatek and quite possibly Ons Jabeur as well. So maybe those names weren't the threats we thought they were, but it just feels like there's been a big impact on the draw today in that top half. I know Elena Rybakina has sort of laid down a statement, but yeah, Collins was really struggling. She was 4-love down, and then the rain came.
There was post-rain delay Danielle Collins.
Yeah, and I think she reeled off 8 games in a row after that. And
Haddad Maia looked troubled out there. I thought she is searching big time this season. It's been a real struggle, and it's tough to see, I think, because last year was obviously such an enormous breakthrough for her. I think her whole world's probably changed after last year, and maybe that's taking a bit of adjustment too. Okay, so those are the round of 16 matches set from the women's draw. Just before we move on to the men's, a plea to like and subscribe. Please do like and subscribe. It really helps us. Thank you very much. Moving on to the men. Shall we start with where we just were? Novak Djokovic and Holger Rune, who are now set to meet. They have a date in 2 days' time. A date that I intend to third wheel at.
Whereabouts?
I think it might be on centre court, David.
Okay.
Don't you?
Yeah, I'd have thought so.
Novak Djokovic beating Alexei Popyrin in 4 sets. Scoreline-wise, Matt, you were out on centre court for this. Very similar to their match at the Australian Open. Was it, in reality, very similar?
It was one of those Novak Djokovic matches at a slam which kind of gives you the illusion of, we might be in trouble here. He's lost the first set. I don't think he was playing that well. They then had to put the roof on, and you think, okay, let's see where this goes. And then he absolutely cruises through sets 2 and 3. He's playing really well in those sets. For some reason, Popyrin is engaging him in lots of backhand-to-backhand rallies. Terrible idea. And Novak Djokovic is looking pretty imperious in those 2 sets. And he takes a 2-1 lead. But then Popyrin gets a bit of a second wind, and as he keeps holding serve, he's ahead in the score, and again there's this illusion of tension building, and maybe it is tension, maybe it isn't, you don't really know, but you've seen Novak Djokovic in that situation before. You always think he's going to do it. Then he gets to 5-all, love 40 on the Popyrin serve, and you think, okay, this is the moment. But then Popyrin saves all of those break points really impressively. One of them really long rally. The crowd's involved. There's a moment where Djokovic has got the crowd going, and then Popyrin gets the crowd going back to him, and Djokovic just sort of smirks at him, which usually just spells the end for the opponent, doesn't it? And then, so we're in a tie break, and Popyrin's got a big game. He's got weapons. You feel like that's potentially a dangerous situation, but then Djokovic plays one of his all-time, classic, brilliant tie breaks, which he said at the end was one of his best of the season so far. And he comes through, and I thought pretty impressive overall. So dominant behind his first serve. Look, I don't think Popyrin's one of the tour's greatest returners necessarily, but Djokovic was impressive behind his serve, and I think, that's the foundation still. Perhaps more so than ever, age 37 on grass with a bit of a knee problem. He's got to be serving well, and he is.
Age 37 on grass, knee surgery 3.5 weeks ago. It remains bonkers, all of it. The violin celebration.
Please don't ask me to explain that, because I've got no idea.
Nobody can. Nobody
Right.
seems to know. Did it seem directed in any particular direction?
It was over towards the boxes. I couldn't tell. It looked quite playful and cheery. It looked like maybe it was directed at his box. He sort of used his racket as a violin. don't know. There was also a moment where clearly everyone was watching the football, and there was like a crowd eruption of noise, and Djokovic like faked kicking a football. Like he knew what was going on. He was
Good
pretty clued in there.
stuff, Novak.
Turns out he's left-footed.
Oh.
Revelation of the day, because he did that with his left foot, and then he said it in his interview that he is left-footed.
Okay.
I don't know what we can extract from that. But
20 years in, we're still
something I
learning
didn't know.
things about Novak Djokovic. Okay, he faces Holger Rune in the 4th round, a player that he has had problems with in the past. Now, Rune had problems of his own today. He found himself 2 sets to love down to qualify contre Alice, but ended up winning, coming from 2 sets down for the first time in his career. And it was showtime Holger Rune, David. The match got moved to court number 1 when Rune he'd started the comeback, but he was very much not all the way back at all. It got moved when he was 2 sets to 1 up, and he just went, oh great, this is where I belong. I'll win now then, shall I? And God, I love watching Holger Rune play like that. I feel like a 5-set date with Holger Rune late at night in the first week of a slam should be regular. Pop it in my diary 4 times a year. Thank you very much.
And that's when we turn up, because last time it was at Roland Garros against Caboli, and it was the other way around. He was 2 sets up, he got reeled in for 2 sets all. We were like, okay, let's go for the 5th set, and we just had the time of our lives out there, and it was similar tonight. Both you and I were on the court in separate positions. I spent at the time on the hill as well. But yeah, I mean, he raced away with that deciding set, and there was a moment where they both sort of played behind the back, underneath shots like that in one rally, and Rune won it, and the crowd absolutely lapped it up. It's just a really intriguing match, because we don't really know where Novak Djokovic is. We know he's here, we know he's performing miracles, really, the fact that he's doing what he's doing with that knee, but we don't know how he's going to perform when he's really pushed by a top player. And I don't regard Rune as a top player currently, but I regard him as somebody who has the ability to be one. So when's that coming out? We've seen it in the past.
He
should be.
Looking at that tennis
Sure,
tonight.
but his results don't back it up.
Yeah, but why isn't he? It's between the ears, isn't it?
I would think so. Yeah, it is, because his game is really, really good. I mean, he lacks nothing really. So which one are we going to get? We have seen him put
Rune will show up against Djokovic.
But we haven't seen him do it at a Grand Slam against Djokovic, and we'll have to see how that plays out.
He did show up he should have beaten Zverev in Paris.
He was 2 sets to 1 up. He was outplaying him, and then he didn't win the 4-set tiebreak, and then he just faded. So is that the play from Djokovic? If they get close, does he fade again? There's so many ingredients here that are tantalising, and to which I don't feel massively confident about, because we know Rune does have the game to really trouble him, but is he at that level at the moment? Don't know.
In my head, Rune was leading that head-to-head against Djokovic. I'd actually totally forgotten about their 2 matches at the end of last year, indoors. But I think in Paris and then Turin, and they were both 3 sets, but Djokovic won them both, and he actually leads the head-to-head 3-2. And Rune's wins were one on clay, and one, obviously, the Paris indoors title that he won. I do think Djokovic is going to win. But I agree with you that I think Rune will show up in that. I think he might have maybe a lapse too many. I just think that I'm not sure he can sustain the level required over 5 sets. But
that's what happened against Zverev.
Exactly.
He was played out of his mind. Like, his ceiling was way above Zverev's ceiling, but his troughs were down his ankles.
But I'm also not sure his ceiling will be way above Djokovic's.
No, but he'll have. I think he'll have moments. I think they could lead to sets.
Yes,
I think this is where we find out where Djokovic is really at.
I think so. I agree. But I don't know, just the ways he looked very content tonight at the end of that match, and he says, "I'm getting better every match." He relishes that kind of matchup against a younger player and being able to, slightly put them in their place a little bit. I think it's a big test, I agree.
Well, I would confidently predict that match will be on centre court, but that would be very Ben Shelton of me, and I could end up with egg on my face. Just like Ben Shelton
his
did
dreams
earlier
lasted
on
all
today.
of about 2.5 minutes.
Yeah, so Ben Shelton beat Denis Shapovalov 6-2 in a fifth set, his third back-to-back fifth setter of this Wimbledon so far. He does not have his best tennis, certainly not consistently across a match, but he is scrapping and it is fun to watch. So he wins the match, he holds up the number 5 to his box, to indicate 5 sets. This was a very 90s tennis match, wasn't it? It was, let's just call it serve dominated. But because it was Ben Shelton, it was kind of fun nonetheless. So holds up the 5 for 5 sets, does a very charismatic interview with Annabel Croft on the talk, on the court, and he's asked about the fact that his dad Brian reached the 4th round of Wimbledon 30 years ago, and he goes, "We're back, big dog." It was just brilliant. And then unsolicited, he goes, "Yeah, I'm playing, Jannik Sinner next, and I assume that's going to be on centre court, so that'll be brilliant." They've put it on court 1.
And they announced it about 2 minutes after he left the court.
Which, look, I think he'll be fine with. I think court 1 really suited him.
Yeah, I
today.
think it does, and I think I don't know, it feels like the place where stuff can happen a bit more. I think if there was an upset, it'd be more likely to happen there.
He is in a state of suspendu in his doubles. I thought he was going to pull out of that, given he's been on the schedule every day and in the singles, and he's played 3 5-setters. Okay, he's not playing grueling 5-setters because they're quick and.
But he has got a shoulder injury and strapping on his knee.
He said he felt great though today.
Okay.
He was pretty sort of buoyant about how he was feeling, but I really thought he was going to pull out of the doubles, and then goes out to
Who's
play
his
it.
doubles partner?
Mackenzie McDonald, and they're tied at 1 set all. They were set up, and then they lost a second set tie break, so he could have got off the court in straight sets, but as it is, they're suspended. So look, I don't know if that has an impact at all. He has beaten post-puke Sinner. He's one of the guys who got him in Shanghai. But I think Sinner was perhaps just coming off that win in Beijing, but he's a disruptive force if everything's flowing and working, and it's just that he's not quite on top of his game at the moment, and he is pretty streaky, and I do think Sinner is just. I think Sinner might overwhelm him, to be honest. I think I could, if I had to predict, I would say straight sets Sinner.
There was a 100. Well, there were a few of them, I think, but there was a 135 mile per hour serve today from Shelton that made the whole crowd sort of almost run for cover. Like if you heard a gunshot or something, like, oh my God, that I don't want that anywhere near me. And I realised that was 18 miles per hour slower than the fastest serve he's hit this tournament, 153, which kind of passed me by, actually. It was a couple of rounds ago, fastest serve ever seen at Wimbledon. Crazy.
Yeah, although, has that been verified? Because in the press conference, they were talking about his fastest serve here being 140 something. So I was a little confused by that.
It was shown on the gun, on the display, on
Has
screen.
there been a recount?
But I did think it was a bit suspect. Because this is a notoriously slow gun versus, say, Queen's. Which tended to produce records.
Yeah.
Which I was delighted about when I was promoting the tournament.
Okay.
Fast, anyway.
Yes, fast. Thank you. Okay, so Shelton Shapovalov, Shelton Shapovalov was today. Shelton Sinner is tomorrow. Shelton back on the schedule for, I think, the 6th day in a row. He's been on the schedule every day since Tuesday. And he played the week before Wimbledon in Mallorca. That's a lot of tennis.
Which he said was a conscious decision, because he felt like last year he never got going on the grass, and he thought, right, I'm going to play an extra week on the grass. He said it didn't work because he didn't play very well in the build-up, but he's got to Wimbledon and he started feeling good. I think he just likes this place, and it's kind of brought out some better tennis and certainly better results. I think 4th round for Shelton, that's That's a good Wimbledon, and now he runs into Sinner, and I don't think he'll see it as a free hit, but
he can have a swing.
He can have a swing. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, he's shown real grit. Because I've seen a couple of the first two matches that he played, and he was not playing well, and he could have gone out. And he's a fighter.
He was better today. Like as you said, it was streaky, but there was a lot of good stuff. I thought his volleys were great generally, but I'm not sure it's enough against Sinner.
Taylor Fritz against Alexander Zverev, a fourth round that was set up today. Zverev beating Cam Norrie in 3 sort of broadly comfortable sets, but the headline of the match is the 17-15 third set tiebreak that Zverev eventually hauled himself across the line of. Still hasn't had his serve broken all tournament, Zverev, and it's not inconvenient to him that a lot of these matches are being played indoors. That's a dream for Zverev.
It really is. He is a considerably bigger threat, I think, when it's indoors. I think the longer it rains, the better his chances.
Fritz has been good though.
Yeah.
Really, really good.
And he's had 2 matches racing against the darkness, and he's managed to beat the darkness both times.
Did the darkness piss him off?
Rinderknecht. By the way, Rinderknecht out of the doubles. Have a nice flight home.
Okay, so Zverev Fritz in a couple of days' time. Daniil Medvedev got yesterday's job finished at 6:42. Medvedev finished the match that started at 11 a.m. yesterday.
He was annoyed with Harriet Dart.
Yes, he was very annoyed with Harriet Dart for losing her lead.
Yeah, he was like, I've never seen so many deuces.
Yeah, he was like, I warmed up when Harriet Dart looked like she was going to win. But anyway, eventually gets the job done. 4 sets against Jan-Lennard Struff, who does indeed have peroxide blonde hair. I saw it when he took the cap off for the handshake.
Did you see
today.
Fabio Fognini and think, I'll have one of those?
Well, Fognini said he lost a bet. That's why he's got his hair like that. I don't know why.
Fabio Fognini is the type of guy that in his late 30s is losing bets and getting silly haircuts. Of course. Daniil Medvedev is very surprised at how well he's playing. He's really pleasantly surprised. That's what I'm taking for Daniil Medvedev right now. He's Jan-Lennard Struff's really good. Sort of wasn't expecting to beat him. This is going well.
Will it be enough, though?
Against Dimitrov? You tell me, David.
No.
You think Dimitrov's winning that?
Yeah, I do.
I think I might too. Ugo Humbert has set up a meeting with Carlos Alcaraz tomorrow. That match is first on centre. Took a few match points for Ugo Humbert, but he
just a few. I was commentating on it again.
Yes, this match felt like it might have been permanently suspendu, but
trolling David.
But Humbert did get the job done, and I can't see him beating Alcaraz, but it'll be a stylish match.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how he gets on. Really, I'm commentating on that actually as well tomorrow. First up on centre court.
Check you out.
I'll tell you. He loves the ball down low, and so grass is good for him. This is the first time he's reached the last 16 since his debut tournament here, 2019. He still should be doing better than he is, Ugo Humbert. He's 16 in the world. He's won a couple of titles this year, but it's about time he really performed in the heart of a Grand Slam like this. So he's got himself to Alcaraz. Can he hurt him? I think what I always think with Alcaraz, if he plays his best, he wins, and usually quite comfortably. But I'm intrigued by it.
Roberto Bautista Agut got the job done against Fabio Fognini, so he will play Tommy Paul tomorrow. And staying with Frenchmen, off the back of Humbert chat, Artifice, David.
Yeah.
It might be happening.
Well,
and David missed it.
You've seen it not happen for so long, and then when he does, you're stuck with Tracy Austin,
which isn't the worst situation to be in. But I think I've seen probably 95% of Artifice's tennis in 2024, And then the moment he goes and has a massive match, I find out it's happening when he's 5-3 up in the fifth. I didn't even know it was on. So he's probably better off without me, I think is what we're taking. He was 2 sets to 1 down
in that match. He did really well, and he's got Alex de Minaur next, who won by walkover today. Luca Pouille pulling out of that match. So that's, rhythm disruptor for Alex de Minaur.
I've seen them play.
They played on clay, didn't they? And Fils won.
Don't think that's a gimmick.
They played each other in Barcelona, and de Minaur did not enjoy that day at all. But he's much better on grass. He goes in as a clear favourite. But this does feel like Fils has just matured before our eyes in the last few weeks. Something has definitely clicked. I think Sebastian Grosjean's probably a big help in that regard.
He was asked in the press conference whether he would have won that match last year, and he said no.
Mentally, he seems so much more stable, and he doesn't just... He if things went against him, he would just find excuses in the past and stop blaming officials and whatever took his fancy. And now he just seems like he's grown up a bit, really.
Quite a big day for Frenchmen, actually, because Giovanni Pesci-Pericard, the lucky loser, who lost to Maxime Janvier in the final round of qualifying, find him, because he must be quite a grass court player, except he lost in the first round, I think. Pesci-Pericard, as a lucky loser, is through to the second week. He beat Miro Savori today, 27 aces, which actually I don't think is that many for Pesci-Pericard. And he plays Lorenzo Musetti next, who has put together a very handsome grass court season. Semi-finals in Stuttgart, finalist at Queen's, backing it up here. I think we can say that round of 16 is already a good result for Musetti.
I saw him lose to Hubert Hurkacz here last year, I think it was, Musetti. And so I just wonder, and having seen that, I remember thinking, he does struggle to do much with these big serves, and somebody who's happy to come forward. So I kind of wonder whether that might be a problem for him.
Well, Musetti's grass court season started against Pesci-Pericard. Watched them play in Stuttgart in the first round, and it was, you won't be surprised, 2 tie breaks, but Musetti won them both. And I kind of think the grass in Stuttgart is even quicker. Like it's sort of old school grass. And actually Musetti was the one doing a better job on return than Pesci-Pericard was. Musetti had a load of break points that he just couldn't convert, and then eventually ended up in 2 tie breaks, and he did win it, Musetti. But Pesci-Pericard had nothing on return himself that day. So I think it's a really interesting match, because he's a nightmare, isn't he, with that serve? He's just hitting so many aces, imposing himself,
and likes coming to the net as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And is just playing with such, we always talk about it, players who have freedom and are fearless, and he's that right now, coming off this kind of incredible breakthrough he's had over the last few months. But I'm impressed with Musetti, because he's not had the toughest draw, but he's quite often lost with not the toughest draw. Exactly, that hasn't always mattered, and this has been a real period of sustained good results, because even going back, in Paris, he played really well against Novak Djokovic as well. So this has been a really good month or 6 weeks or so for Musetti.
Okay, so confirming the order of play for tomorrow, day 7 of the championships. Alcaraz and Humbert open up centre court. Then Lulu Sun against Emma Raducanu, the qualifier, of course. Lulu Sun on a 6-match winning streak against the last British woman, Emma Raducanu. Then it's another Emma, Navarro, against Coco Gauff. So 2 women's, 1 men's on centre court tomorrow, which is really good to see. Court number 1, Jasmine Paolini starts against Madison Keys. Then it's Sinner against Shelton. And then it's Dimitrov Medvedev. Badosa Vekic starts on court 2. Tommy Paul against Bautista Agut is court 2 as well. And then I think we're going to have to scroll all the way down to court 18 for singles.
No, that's it, isn't it?
Are we already at that stage?
I think we're already there. Wow. Yeah.
I'm not ready.
Only eight singles matches.
There's junior
tomorrow.
Players everywhere. I'm not ready. Okay, so that's tomorrow. Emma Raducanu second on centre court in the singles, and that brings us to the other big story of the day, away from the match court. The news that dropped at about 2 p.m. that Raducanu is over before it even started. I had to say it, David, because I'll never be able to say it again.
Correct.
Raducanu. Let's get them all out of our system now, because
Eminem.
okay. A&E. Emma Raducanu pulled out of the mixed doubles mid-afternoon, citing stiffness in her wrist. Russell Fuller also reported that being scheduled 4th on court 1 today in the mixed doubles with Andy Murray was also a factor in her decision to pull out. Now, a bit of background from the club on that scheduling decision. Their hands were pretty tied on this because of the opponents of Emma Raducanu and Andy Murray, Zheng Shuai, and more specifically Marcelo Arevalo, who's also in the men's doubles. He's a double specialist. He and partner Mate Pavic were taking on Romain Arniodo and Sam Semverbeek. Those guys.
Yep.
And their match yesterday didn't get completed because, I don't know if you've heard, but the weather's been horrendous. Their match didn't get completed, so they had to play early today. Marcelo Arevalo had to play 2 matches today, essentially. So the second one had to be late on the schedule. It had to be put on a show court because it's Andy Murray's probable last match at Wimbledon. I don't think they had much choice, and I do think that put Emma Raducanu in a difficult position vis-a-vis her singles, and the fact that, we said it yesterday, she's got a chance of winning this title. She's in the mix for the title. Now, I just want to preface discussion of this with the fact that we are so acutely aware of what a lightning rod Emma Raducanu is for opinion, and very unnuanced opinion. And it does affect what we want to say about Emma Raducanu, because it is so uncomfortable seeing the delight and pleasure certain people, mostly on the internet, take in seeing her make mistakes, if that is how you view this. A lot of people don't, or in her being criticised and brought down by a lot of people. There is something pretty dark, I think, about the response out there to every move that Emma Raducanu makes that makes us deeply uncomfortable. And I really don't want to be a part of that, or add to it, or contribute to what I'm quite sure is a pile-on. I haven't looked on Twitter or anything to see what people are saying about Emma Raducanu, because my heart just sinks when I think about what that might look like. But at the same time, I don't like this. I think this is poor from Emma Raducanu. Not necessarily the prioritising of the singles. I do get that. The mistake was signing up to do it in the first place and undertaking it lightly, undertaking a commitment to Andy Murray and what it would mean lightly. She took it too lightly, and now she's ended up doing something which I think looks pretty poor. And I don't like saying that. I say it with understanding of the fact that she's 21 and has been injury blighted for her whole career, and she stands on the precipice of a massive opportunity here. But I think this is a bit regrettable.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame. She shouldn't have signed up for it. Logically speaking, when you look at it, it's just a bit of a shame. She's been an injury-ridden player who's missed 10 months of her career. There were pictures circulating today of her this time last year in a bed with 2 arms in the air, wearing casts on her wrists, and another one around her ankle. 3 surgeries a year ago. She's had a horrible time, and I can really understand being cautious at every turn with those injuries. I've said repeatedly, I won't judge her career at all for another year and a half until she's had a good year or so of health. I think what's happened here is she's been asked to play with Andy Murray, and she was incredibly excited to be asked, and she said yes. I don't think she's thought it through an awful lot more than that, to be honest. I think that's a bit of a shame. Maybe they needed to scenario plan a little bit. What if this? What if that? I don't know. Maybe they did come to an agreement between them of those sort of things. We joked about Steffi Graf and John McEnroe last night, which suddenly...
I really wasn't expecting that chat to be prescient in any way. I can't believe...
accidentally spoke it into existence.
Yeah. I was really shook when that news dropped.
I do think that it's not that big a deal, personally. Andy Murray has already had his massive farewell ceremony, big match. It couldn't have been more perfect. Yes, it would have been lovely to see him play mixed doubles with Emma Raducanu. I was looking forward to it. I understand a lot of people who were going to the match it would be very disappointed. I would be too. And yes, I think it's a shame. But I think, logically speaking, if she has got some soreness in the wrist or stiffness, then she needs to be very careful about that, both for this tournament and for the long run. I exited court number 1 commentary box in the match that was due to be before hers. It was 8:20 in the evening. That is not ideal preparation for a singles match. Now, you could say, well, she should have thought of that. Well, she said herself, I've barely even played doubles. She doesn't know about this stuff. Now, maybe somebody should have said, are you sure you want to be signing up to that? What happens if it's Andy Murray's final ever match and you can't play it? Maybe that should have happened. I think that's fair enough. But I don't think it's that big a deal. Andy Murray has had the most wonderful send-off, and I think that's okay.
It was a wonderful send-off, and it was perfect in so many ways, but kind of the reason he wanted to play singles this year, Andy Murray, was because he wasn't planning for last year to be his last singles match, and he wasn't planning for that doubles with Jamie to be his last match at Wimbledon, because he thought he was going to be doing this with Emma Raducanu. So there is something that's been taken away from Andy Murray there, even if it was an amazing send-off the other day with Subaka and his brother and all those players on the court. Like, that was an amazing moment, but there's no doubt that Murray wanted to play this mixed doubles for sure.
He's reported that the quote is really disappointed from Andy Murray.
Yeah, and then we saw Judy Murray's post on X saying that it was...
Oh, you've gone X.
Given that we're reporting a serious thing, I thought for once I would say X, formerly known as Twitter, saying that it was astonishing.
Yes, and then there was an
Raducanu
Instagram post, a very pointed Instagram post as well from Judy, quoting Serena Williams on what an honour it was for her to get to play mixed doubles with Andy Murray a few years ago. And I understand why she feels the kind of way that she obviously felt when doing those posts. I don't like that she hit send on them, because she understands social media and the climate and what that's going to lead to, particularly for young women, particularly for Emma Raducanu, and I just don't like that.
Yeah, I gasped when I saw those. I think it probably... Look, we should say we don't know the state of Emma Raducanu's wrist. I mean, reporting it as stiffness and soreness doesn't scream to me injury that means that it's going to really jeopardise your tournament if you play a mixed doubles with Andy Murray.
I wonder if that was how it was pitched to Andy Murray, because he would probably go, you're a bit stiff, are you? You're stiff.
Have you seen me walk for the last 7 years?
And Andy Murray might say that now, age 37, but I remember him in 2008, 3 years after his debut here, pulling out of a Davis Cup tie in Argentina, and his own brother saying that affects how I feel about Andy. The fact that he didn't show up for the Davis Cup tie. Now Andy was 21. I mean, he made some decisions then that he wouldn't make now, and I think it's worth bearing that in mind.
So, but I think, like, physically, this may well be the best thing for Emma Raducanu to do for her tournament. I think it perhaps says a lot about how she sees her hopes in this tournament. Suddenly it's like, wow, okay, this draw has opened up. There's an opportunity for me here to go really deep. I think that is part of it. But what I do wonder is it the best move for the general mood around her? If you think back to all of Emma Raducanu's best tennis and best runs, even this one that she's having right now in the singles, it's been about joy. It's been about everyone being behind her and with her. And there's no doubt that this will split opinion, what she's done here. She will be pressed on it after her match tomorrow. You know, let's say she wins, there might be a sort of joyous occasion, but then she'll be snapped back to this, and suddenly she'll have to try and justify it in front of the press. And I just wonder whether that whole atmosphere that this might create might derail that joy and that mood that she's kind of been in at the moment. So will it necessarily end up being the best thing for her singles, or would playing once with Murray, quite probably losing? She's not a doubles player. Murray can barely move.
Is this a bit like Hubert Hurkacz? You just got to put an underarm serve in court.
Right, it's kind of like that, a little bit scaled up. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. Like, I understand it, but I don't like it.
Same. I think the issue is that, like, this is a very foreseeable scenario.
Yes.
Like, nothing extraordinary has happened for us to get to this point, and you do rely on the people around you. When you're in Raducanu's position, you rely on the people around you.
That if somebody said that to her beforehand and she said, "Oh no, I want to play because it's Andy," you know, I'd love to know, because that conversation did need to be had.
And it did feel like a lot on her plate, considering how little she's played, considering how just a few matches on clay. She spoke about, you know, being pretty fatigued. Like, it's a Grand Slam and you're adding extra stuff. Like, yeah, I think the biggest mistake was probably saying yes in the first place.
I do think it all just highlights what a sort of me against the world attitude Emma Raducanu has to life and to tennis, which I think is very understandable when I think about her life experience since she retired here against Ayla Tomljanovic, but also, of course, since she won that US Open, and how she has become that lightning rod. She's had a stalker. You know, she's had some absolutely extraordinary life experiences. It just makes me sad. It makes me sad to think that she might feel that way. You know, I do think that there is some of that going on, and I hope she's okay. You know, I hope she's still able to enjoy this run and still receives support, because lots of things can be true at the same time. I think you can not like this and wish she hadn't done this and still continue supporting her in the singles.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, you know.
But we live in a world where a lot of people can't make room for two things in their mind at the same time.
The way you've just described her, you could be describing Andy Murray 15, 17 years ago, when he was making mistakes and he was young and maybe could have thought things through, you know. And it's like, so how do we react to that? Do we just write him off? You know, no, we don't. I agree with you both. It's okay to sort of accept or acknowledge mistakes or a decision that maybe wasn't the best one, but now move on.
Do you think Andy Murray will forgive her? Do you think this will be a we're back here again?
Yeah, I do.
Do you think this will be McEnroe-Graf?
No, I do think he will. Yeah.
Did McEnroe and Graf speak? Is that okay now?
I don't know. I think that no, they do speak. I think, but I think he probably tell her he wasn't happy about it.
They're both on the pickleball gravy train, aren't they?
No, and there's nothing. Andy, I do understand why Andy's disappointed. Don't get me wrong. I mean, he was looking forward to it, and it's his last one, and we know how much he's hurting about having to stop playing tennis. But come on, you've had a good run at this. It's okay.
Raducanu, R.I.P.
So much wasted energy on trying to come up with a team name and ruining David's day.
No, it's fine because I didn't waste any energy on it.
Yeah. Raducanu. Wow, that's going to be a question on our end of year quiz, isn't it? Something about the Raducanu that never was. Oh my goodness, what a day. How did that all happen today? We have our lovely mascot, Maverick. Hello to Maverick and to Carol. Hope you two enjoyed today. We, of course, have our mascots. I got points today for the dearly departed Darwin. She was looking ropey with Wang Jingyu for a moment. She had her arm strapped in several different ways, but somehow came through. David and Francis.
Yeah, my run ended at the hands of Cameron Norrie, so he's off the
Matt
birthday card
had
list.
a shocker with Quentin Elise, who was 2 sets to love up on Holger Rune.
I was feeling quite smug about that pick, and
why didn't I go for Artifice?
Dreams
Probably because I didn't know he was
tatters.
playing.
Billie Jean, hello Billie Jean. Squirrel is sponsored by Billie Jean King and Ilana Kloss. And we have our top folks and executive producers, Jamie, Jeff, Chris and Greg. And it's over to you, Matt, for shout-outs.
we have Emily Price.
Hi, Emily.
Hello, Emily.
Emily is in Australia, and she would like to also shout out her tennis watching, talking partner in crime, Nat,
Oh,
which is very nice.
lovely. Hello to Emily and to Nat.
Emily says the joy of all things tennis wouldn't be the same without Nat.
Oh, that's so lovely.
There's a British tennis player called Emily Appleton.
Yes, I think she's in the doubles.
Okay, there we are.
And there was an Emily Webley-Smith,
Correct.
a British player
That's
as well.
right. Have we got any non-British Emilys? I can't think of any.
Not sure. Natalie Tozier for
Very
Nat.
good.
Very good.
I did steal that from Hannah on the chat, I need to confess. Lovely. Thank you to Emily and Nat. Lovely stuff.
We've also got Nicholas Orrit in Australia as well.
Oh, an
Hi,
Australia
Nicholas.
theme.
Bendigo, Australia.
Yes. Like Nicholas Kiefer
Yes.
and
Yes.
the
Nicholas Lepenti.
Nicholas Lepenti.
Very good.
Lepenti. There were the French Escudé.
Yes, but without
Wow.
an H.
Oh,
Yeah.
Nicolas Mou.
Mo. Yeah.
You're on fire.
Check me out.
Haven't thought about Nicholas Escudé in a while.
He was good.
Mau is in the doubles here with someone whose name is Mansouri. Just like
Oh.
Mansour Barami
Right.
put together.
Okay. Thank you, Nicholas. Do we know anything about Nicholas?
No, other than that he's from Bendigo in
Lovely.
Australia.
Sounds great. Probably, again, warmer than it is here.
And finally, we've got Dana Prosser,
Hi, Dana.
who is originally from Southern California, but now lives in Oregon.
Okay. Like Portland, Oregon. So, well, Taylor Fritz is a Southern Californian, isn't he? He's from San Diego. What do we know? Do we know anything else about Dana?
4 dogs.
We know good things about Dana, folks.
And started listening to the pod in... No, actually, no, that is not what she said. I've misread that. But apparently got in touch with us in March of 2020 and emailed us lots of photos of those dogs. What a month
They're
that
probably
was.
saved on my phone somewhere. They probably got me through some dark times
Yeah.
in March 2020. Thank you, Dana. Thank you. Thanks to all of our shout-out friends of the Tennis Podcast, for all of you listening, to all of you that are with us live. Do smash that like and subscribe button, folks. We'll, of course, be back tomorrow. Subscribe to the newsletter for today's King of the Naughties update. It is a tough question. That's
great.
your teaser for today. Matthew's had it. David's just buckle up.
Did
he
you get
says.
it right?
Some of it.
It's a multi-stage question. Subscribe to the newsletter, folks.
Come on.
And you can find out what happens there.
I was a bit mean because I gave Matthew the paper with the questions on during extra time of the football.
Oh, well done. Thanks for that.
It was a helpful distraction
Thing is,
for us all.
David always has to do it at the end of the night when he's tired in the dark.
Hence why I'm 8-6 down.
Watch this space, folks. Subscribe to the newsletter, like and subscribe. Most importantly, join us tomorrow for our next tennis podcast live from Wimbledon, day 7 of the championships. Fingers and toes crossed once again that it'll be a little bit warmer. We live in hope, folks, but either way, we'll be back then and we'll see you then.